Funding just means you're alive today with some runway to figure out what to do. It's gonna get crazier and crazier as the world goes on, and it's exciting in that way. Find people at Get A's and just build a community around you that when you are ready to do your startup, you have them. My startup is basically, the company is called JustPay.AI. For me, the startup is basically, think of it like there's a lot of people in the world of finance and they're hired in and they do a lot of the work for companies. And essentially what our company does is you have this drop-in module that helps you collect revenue. At the end of the day, if you're not getting paid, the company is done. So we wanted to go like straight to the root of like the lifeblood of every company and allow the technology, there's all this new technology coming around AI. We're really looking at that and saying, what can we apply there to create this like living agent that any company in the United States or around the world can use, and we will help them collect their revenue when they get a customer. There's a lot of, hot learning around LLMs, and there's a lot of, I would say, innovation happening in industry right now around just what is AI, right? And there's a huge amount of investment going into AI right now. So, billions and billions and billions of dollars are just being poured in to this industry. And when you're pouring in all of this money into this industry, generally a startup can capitalize on that type of investment. So like if Google and Apple, Meta, OpenAI, and Microsoft and Amazon, and you go on and on and on, and they're just, all of them are pouring all of this money in. New tools are coming online so fast, and a lot of them are like new AI, like in LLM technology. And how do you leverage that to do a specific task, right? So for us, we're saying, okay, what's out there? Who can we capitalize on? Look at all of the parties and players out there and leverage what new technology is out there to take advantage of that to build what we are building. If you look at like the history of the world of technology, this has happened over and over and over again. And I can just talk about like a couple of instances where like we had these huge investments, and then later on you reap the rewards of those investments. Like I'll go really far back. Have you guys heard of ARPANET? ARPANET was the original internet. It was built by the government in case of war. So if literally ARPANET, the United States said, we're going to put ARPANET in. So if we're bombed, there's a way for us to communicate without telephone lines. And that means we can route data. If this whole area is gone, destroyed, we can reroute data to other areas. It sounds so silly that I'm saying this, but this was like the military's original thinking with ARPANET, which was how do we reroute data if like sections of like wiring are burned and destroyed, right? So like they put in all this infrastructure, and then the school system said we could write emails through this system. So they layered on email on top of ARPANET, and then it became not just like a military tool to like communicate. It became like a university tool to communicate. And then others were like, well, if we could just hack this a little more, we could probably send like actual like I could send you maybe like an article. And then they like layered articles into this like ARPANET thing. And then someone said, hey, like maybe I could create like a reader to read whatever each other are sending each, right? And then they put like HTTP together. I mean, you guys know what HTTP is. So they put HTTP in there and they said, hey, like this is kind of like the internet. And it's like this interconnected way to communicate. And it's not just a military thing. And that was like, we just see these like, I call it like an S curve where like there's an S curve is like, it's kind of like an S where like you see this massive adoption of a technology very, very quickly. And the ripples of innovation were unapparent to the original creators. And ARPANET is an example of like the military built this for themselves without realizing it's going to literally run the world. And, now it's out there and everybody's using the internet, but you see these S-curve innovations happening over and over again. And I'll give you another example. Like everybody before, like AWS, I don't know if you know what AWS is, but it's essentially like you can buy a server and start a startup very, very quickly. But like Amazon, like it was not apparent to them originally to create AWS. What they were trying to do was solve their own problem, which was when the holidays come, we need a lot more servers because our servers crash. So what they did is they created like a server farm, and then like what is it? Hanukkah, Christmas, Easter, Black Friday. At those moments in time, their infrastructure was like, I would say, hit with a huge load of like users requesting stuff. And then like that, the Christmas time wave would just drop, and then this server farm would be empty. And Amazon was like, "Hey, we just invested like billions of dollars into this server farm. Maybe when it's not a holiday, we should let other users use this thing." It was unapparent to them that they were building a business to help foster startups to create their own companies. Because before like this idea of cloud computing, we would literally have to buy physical servers for our own startups. They solved their own problem, realizing they were solving a problem for everyone else. And it created a ripple effect where others would say, Amazon figured out servers. I would like to rent some of their server space because it's not Christmas time. And then they would let them do it. And they built this whole infrastructure around that, not realizing they were fostering like the world of innovation at like a mass scale. Same thing with the iPhone. Like iPhone, like the original iPhone, whether you guys realize it or not, did not have the App Store. Steve Jobs, I don't know if you know this, was like, I don't want other people on my phone. And, it became apparent to them that, like, if we don't let other developers build things on our phone, the phone is less useful. And it created a ripple effect, an S curve of mass adoption, because everybody wanted to use Uber. Everybody wanted to use Facebook. Everybody wanted to use Netflix. Everybody wanted to use Pandora. What happened was they allowed these people onto the phone, these other companies onto the phone, and you got like amazing companies building things like leveraging the geolocation, the phone's hardware, like the cameras. Instagram would not have existed without like the iPhone allowing it to sit on the iPhone. And the original plan of the iPhone was not to do that. I don't know if you know that. Like it was not to have other apps like live on the product. What's happening now in the world of AI is they're doing what they're doing, thinking it's going to be what it's going to become, but they're not seeing the unknown unknowns. So they're creating mass server farms. Microsoft is, Google is, Meta is, massive server farms of AI LLMs. They think it's going to do something for them, but it's going to be way different than what people expect long term, which is the exciting thing. You're going to get unapparent use cases. So like if you run ahead and you do the investment and you get all these developers building on your infrastructure, you're going to go, "Oh, I didn't even realize it's going to allow people to do what it's doing now." It was crazy talk to say like everybody's going to carry a cell phone in their like if in 1960s like Star Trek, you had Captain Kirk like walking around with this like little device in his, and he's like, "Beam me up, Scotty." Right? It's like, what is that device? That's not going to actually exist. Like they didn't think that was going to exist. So like you guys in your brain think the world is going to operate at some level. It's going to go beyond what you guys even can comprehend. You're going to say, "I can't believe that if I put this droplet in my eye, I have like AI tech. I have an AI technology that I can hear for 2 weeks." You're like, "What?" It's like a dissolvable chip in a droplet in your eye that's talking to you. Like it's going to get crazier and crazier as the world goes on. And it's exciting in that way where it's the unknown unknowns that are going to like the world exciting, but it's all that investment, the S curve. And we're just taking advantage of all this technology that's like they're rivaling each other and it's fostering a lot of innovation in the United States. I think because they're investing so much in these server farms, it is the early days of AI. So you're just seeing a glimpse of like what is possible. That might be really disruptive in really, for me it's in really positive ways. I view AI as like a learning tool. I view it as a assistant, but there are some like scary things that can come from AI, like if the military is using it and they need, it is there is like a cold war going on out there where there's like whoever knows who's going to attack first wins. Like it's a game of that. And I think AI is a tool that is enabling countries to protect themselves at a mass scale. But like, are we at the early days or the later days of the S curve? It's super early and it's hard to tell. Like, it's hard to tell where it's going to go because they're not even lit up yet. Like a lot of these infrastructural server farms are not like there yet. So the more infrastructure we have, the more that's possible. I mean, what's possible, right? Like what is an LLM really possible like capable of? What is DeepMind? Everybody talks about DeepMind and like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they did that with such little money." It would not have been possible without the expenditure of the others. In my mind, I'm like, you don't get a cell phone that's cheaper than everything else without all the other past learnings. It's like it's apparent to me you can make a cell phone now for like $400, but like try making a cell phone in 1960 like you have today. It's like it wasn't possible. There was huge amounts of investment. So when people are like saying like, "Oh my god, they did it better, faster," I'm like, it's only going to get better. And there are going to be glimpses of like better, quicker, faster all of the time. It's just going to keep happening. And it may happen in Europe, it may happen in the US, it may happen in Canada, it may happen in, Latin America. It's just whoever has the insight is going to like take advantage of the past learnings. And that's the thing about technology. It's just whoever like has the right team and like the right foresight can like make optimizations very quickly. So in this S curve, we're at the early stages where this stuff may run on a cheap cell phone if they're able to like optimize it. And what does that mean? Like it may get to a point where it could cure cancer on your phone. You buy a $400 phone and it's like curing horrible diseases. And I'm like, can we get there? The answer is maybe. I talk about another thing called the K curve, which is you're either learning what AI is. So it's like a K, right? You start off, you're either learning or you're not. Like, and you're going to lose. So it's a K in a sense where you're going to see lawyers that don't want to learn AI and their practices are going to hurt. You're going to see like technology companies that are not going to want to learn AI and their companies are going to hurt. And then you're going to see lawyers who are jumping on AI and then they're going to use AI agents for legal and it's going to make them a better practice. But when you fight what's happening in industry and you say that's not good for us, it kind of hurts your business like disastrously. I think it's okay to be a wrapper on top of these other infrastructure companies. And why would I say that? Let's look at healthcare. ChatGPT doesn't have the deep knowledge like a medical record company does. It just has what it has, and it may have some insight, but does it have 25 million patients with cancer in it? Right? So if you take a ChatGPT and you make it a wrapper on top of something that has insight into other areas, they talk about the dark web. It's areas that you're like you can't access. It's almost like if you can take that type of product, a ChatGPT type product, and then you put a wrapper on top of it with 25 million medical records with patients with an aggressive form of cancer, you're going to get a hybrid tool that didn't exist before. And I think people are doing this in mass in the United States where they're creating a lot of these wrapper tools. And some of them might be silly, like a tool that creates like, smiley faces, and it's like it's doing it through ChatGPT and it's creating like this like non-useful thing that nobody wants. But wrappers are not necessarily a bad thing because if you get the right interface and someone can do something 25 seconds faster, I use different tools for different things. And like Google still is a better spell checker. And I always default to Google to get the correct spelling. Like the word superfluous. Like maybe you know how to spell that, maybe you don't. But like I don't go and try to spell check in ChatGPT because it just like makes something up and it's just like, oh, that word, because I spelled it wrong, it'll just say whatever it says. But when you go to Google, it actually redefines it and types in the word correctly. So like some wrappers may allow for better use of our product. It's just the way the world works. If you get a wedge in somewhere, you can like build around that wedge quite a bit. And like, what's a good example of this? Like Netflix, right? Like, what was their wedge? They were shipping DVDs to people's homes. That was their wedge. Like, and they could do that faster, and there was no late fees for shipping a DVD to someone's home. Like, that was their in for some people because they just were like, I want to see this movie and I don't want to return it in 5 days and get a late fee. And just because of that, it gave them a chance to like live. I mean, raising money is a great thing. It like lets a company have runway to like invest and spend appropriately to like build the thing that they want to build, right? Or to get hire some of team members, maybe it's sales team or marketing team. Raising for the sake of raising is scary. And when founders raise money, they tend to spend it, right? So when you see like a company raise $100 million, you can't tell if they're going to survive. I'm going to give you an example. Like there were two companies. There was a company called Digg, and then there was a company called Reddit. This is a good example because Reddit's like flying high, and everybody knows what it is right now. But there was a fledgling small company, Reddit, and then there was a hot startup, and they did the exact same thing. And Digg, Digg.com, Digg.com, raised a ton of money. And they were the hot startup, and they literally do what Digg does. I'm sorry, Reddit does. They hired a lot of people. They decided they were going to change the interface and make it different, and it all went wrong. Everything fell apart. And this small company that raised no money, like gets acquired, and you think, it's an acquired small company, it's probably going to die. The path of that company and the trajectory just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And then it pulled itself out of being acquired. And then it became a large public company. And I'm like, that's one path where like the underdog won. And then there's massive companies like Magic Leap. Have you ever heard of Magic Leap? You can Google it. They raised a ton of money, right? Where are they today? I don't know if they're there or they're not there. I don't think funding means success. Funding just means you're alive today with some runway to figure out what to do. Some companies can like chug along for 30, 40 years and then become massive, like Walmart. Walmart just like chugged along. They were the underdog. And the founder just worked weekends and he worked nonstop and he like would go into his stores and he'd see what was being sold and he figured out like a weird way to sell stuff. And like you had these massive competitors just like fall over the years. Finishing and getting the degree, it creates a milestone in your life where like you can take risks after that. But like getting that degree, it also protects you. So like if you think about it from my mindset, you get your degree, you're hireable. Now it's your chance to take that risk in your life, right? Because even if you fail, even if you give it a year and you stay at your parents' house and you're trying to make this startup work, it's like you still have your degree and like you can fall back on that degree to just find a job. So it creates a fail safe system for you to like go out and venture. Here is a reason to quit and like drop out. So you're in school, you see an opportunity to make $700,000 guaranteed. That might be a legitimate reason to quit. I think there was a certain level of certainty. So like Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know him personally, but look at it from his perspective. Started it in school, got a mass adoption of users. Then some guy in Silicon Valley says, I'll give you several $100 million. You come out here and work for a summer. He had no way to lose. Yes, he could have lost, but he already had a lot of the pieces in place not to lose. And if you look at Bill Gates, I don't know the full story of Microsoft, but he saw something and believed his time working on that would abnormally be way more worth it than staying in school. If you have that type of conviction, but I don't think a lot of students have that type of conviction. If you do, then just leave If you don't, then stay. And if you stay, the plan should be find the smartest friends that get A's in computer science classes, find the smartest friends who are artistic and like don't forget who they are. Find the smartest people who are in like the business side of, business. Don't isolate yourself to like just your camp. I'm in computer science. I can't talk to the people that are in history. I'm in business in the venture capital group. I can't talk to the computer scientists. I think that is a sad like effect of school is there's almost these like camps that are created. I think find people that get A's, find people that can finish projects fast, and just build a community around you that when you are ready to do your startup, you have them. So like for me, when I started my first startup, I was 30 years old. But I knew in school the smartest people. I went to Stony Brook University. I knew the smartest developers from that school. I stayed in touch with them. One guy raised $120 million from my class. I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, I want to start my own startup. Can you help me?" And he's like, "Yes, of course." And he would spend like nights and weekends with his friend. And he's like, "If you're going to do this, you need to do this, 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 this." So he like raised a ton of money and he knew what he was doing. And he was my friend. I couldn't recruit him as my co-founder, but he gave me a lot of advice. And then the other guy who I knew from school who like could finish projects abnormally fast in computer science became my co-founder. So I had like one friend who was like doing it on his own, coming in and helping me. I had another friend who was abnormally good at like software development, be my co-founder. It created a nice mix of support. But I was 30 years old. So I worked at a few startups and saw what had happened there myself. So I worked at one. That company, didn't work. I was just a developer there. Then I went and worked at another company. And then that company didn't work. And then I started my company at 30. But, what is the value of school? It's honestly the network. Like, it's great to learn the theories in math. It's great to learn like the history of like, you're paying to be near some of the most smart people. Don't lose those connections. Stay in touch with those people. Cause like there'll be a day, maybe it's right after school. There'll be a day right after school where you're like, I want to do this. I'm going to, I just graduated. I need like two smart co-founders. I think if you want to do it in school, do it in school. That's okay. Start something in school while you're going to class, but see like, can you get a user to log in daily? Is there somebody that's actually seeing value in it? Can a professor use it? Or can the local pizzeria use it? Or can somebody use something that you build? I think that's where you get a lot of learnings from. I've seen studies done, and you can research this yourself, where they say the right time to start a company is like your late 30s or your 30s or your 40s. I mean, just think of it like this. Some people think of it as this is my chance. And for me, I think at 30 years old, I had saved $50,000, right? So as a 30-year-old, I had wasn't married. I didn't have a car payment. I had no student debt. I owned basically nothing. I had a girlfriend at the time and $50,000. Now I could have, and I also lost my job because I was working at a startup. So I was like a jobless. The startup imploded. Everybody lost their job in the end. For me, that situation taught me a lesson, right? In my situation, specifically my situation, I did two startups. I learned a lot. I saw how the companies operated and I said, I can do better. And I have $50,000 in my bank account. I'm not going to go on vacations. I'm not going to go out to eat. I'm not going to drive my car. I'm going to work 7 days a week. And I'm going to see in a 2-year time frame what I can do. And I'm going to get my bank account basically down to zero. That was my thinking. Like I could have put it all in Apple. I could have I could have put a down payment on a small 1-bedroom apartment in, Astoria, Queens. There were a lot of like options out there. I could have gotten a safe job and just like saved more life savings. But for me, there was a moment where I said, everybody creating a startup, they don't have more knowledge than me. They may have more specialization, like if you're doing like hardware chips or if you're doing like healthcare, but I didn't see like a barrier to entry in the world of startups at the age of 30. This is my chance. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to methodically take every day and take a step towards success. And I'm going to pick an industry that I'm passionate about, and I'm going to surround myself with people that are just as passionate to like create success for myself. Now, like people hit these different moments in their life, but not everybody hits those moments. I'd call it like deer in the headlights fear. I need to get a job to pay off this debt, right? That's fear. That's immediate like panic and fear. And you're not wrong. Like that's there. But you have to go over those barriers to like start something. And I think it's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You go bankrupt personally at the age of 24. I like what like just like let's go there a second. Like what is the worst thing that can happen for you guys? You rack up your credit cards, you get $50,000 in credit card debt. You don't know how to pay it off. Your student loans are piling up and there's like delinquent payments, coming in. You go bankrupt. But at least you tried and you can say I tried. I tried. Like you only live once. We're all going to be dead in 150 years. That's like if you want to do it, it may not be right after school, but like build your plan to get there. And it may be right after school, it may not. But I think other people, it depends on their path. So like it depends on the person and depends on where they are in their life. Maybe you need $200,000 as a safety net. And then you're like, I'm going to start now. For me, it was $50,000 and being 30 years old and having enough experience saying like, I have enough of the puzzle pieces for myself to like just jump in. I would say one common trait of failure that can definitely damage like your startup and it probably not succeeding is if you pick the wrong people to if it's not a friend from school and you just met somebody on the street and they're like, I'm a good coder. I can help you build the vision and the dream. And then suddenly like you're not working well together and you're not gelling well together. Like probably the base for failure is co-founder fights, like and the relationship fraying all around. So I'll just be a single co-founder. That's great. A lot of founders say that. I'm just going to be a single co-founder. Like momentum begets momentum. And what I mean by that is if you're alone, isolated in your apartment, working on your startup, and you have nobody that believes in what you're working on, and you wake up and you're like, what am I working on? 2 days go by, 4 days go by, 10 days go by, 1 year goes by, and you have 2 years of like runway. You do need people, and people are sometimes hard to deal with. Like it's just the reality of like doing a startup. But if you start a company and the relationship between the co-founders is frayed, the chances of success are drastically lower. And this is just set in my head as it's like the foundation doing a startup. I think school is honestly probably the best place to find co-founders, hands down. If you look at Microsoft, they all came from Harvard, they all knew each other. You get to play startup. You doing course projects together, in a sense. If you're given a really hard task and you're paired with somebody, or if you see somebody over there doing the task faster, you get to a sense of like, who can I work with? Who has the social skills to work with me? Every co-founder has their quirks. So you're figuring out dynamics to see like, who do I work with throughout the night? Like, and we get excited about finishing the project. Like, is there like a friend in college that you've worked on a project with till like 5 a.m? That's someone that may be a good co-founder. Like the chances of that person being like a great co-founder are really high. And in school, you have so many different types of opportunities for those types of people. But you're going to get a lot of hesitancy, like from a lot of other students. Students are going to get scared and they're just going to be like, I can't do that. It is the ones who are more bolder. Maybe they just have a little more money in their bank account. Maybe they didn't take out as much student loan debt. Maybe they're just crazier and they just like are hyper fixated on doing a startup. Maybe they want to make a name for themselves because their parents like spent their life savings like on getting them to Harvard. Maybe, they just are hyper technical and a technical challenge is like a fun challenge for them. So like the psychology of your co-founder, it doesn't really matter as long as you're aligned to do it together for like a long period of time. Can you time it for after graduation? A lot of students go into panic mode and they try to just find a job. So like you can foster those relationships before you graduate and say, when we graduate, this is the plan. That may not happen. Like I didn't do this, but like you can do a lot of testing in school. You can start to build something in school and see if it like works out. Y Combinator de-risks you quite a bit. So what I meant about momentum begets momentum. You feel an energy at Harvard, right? This energy, like we all have to graduate. Like you're all feeling that stress, right? Take that same stress and apply it to a community of people that are all aligned that they have to make their startups work. It really is a great support system for you to get your company off the ground. If I told you I was going to give you $500,000 to start your company the day you graduate, would you do it? The answer is probably yes. I think that's the de-risk immediately from like trying something like a Y Combinator. I'm biased. I think Y Combinator is probably one of the best accelerators out there, simply because they have a lot of smart team members that have like done it several times over. Sam Altman in my first startup was my advisor. He created OpenAI. Like the guy saw so much and he was so smart. Like he was seeing things I wasn't seeing about like the world. And I'm like, I was getting a lot of advice from him. Another one of my advisors was Paul Buchheit, the creator of Gmail in my first startup. He created Gmail and he just did some of the best investing and he understood like how to build companies and he understood like what we needed to get our company off the ground. So I'd go to him for a lot of advice. And you know, I'd go to Jessica Livingston and Paul Graham. These are the original founders of Y Combinator. If you wanted to do a startup, I would 100% apply to each cohort of Y Combinator. Like, no question. It's a great place to get a support system when you need it because it is a lonely life, like doing a startup. It's very stressful and there's a lot of, you question yourself a lot. But when you have a lot of other people doing that and they're pushing themselves to get like that next sale or pushing themselves to create that next technological breakthrough, it's super inspiring. Like, you know, I'm talking to people that are building electric planes and I'm like, whew, how's that like? And, you know, I talk to people like trying to cure cancer or AIDS. And you know, these are startups that are actually trying to do this. And I'm like, these are noble causes. I'm like, if they can do it, then I can do it. Right. So like you're looking at your fellow students and you're saying, if they can graduate, I can do it. How do I get there? Like, how do I like study hard enough and get there? So again, I said momentum begets momentum. It's like you see a lot of these companies. Dropbox. You know, I met Drew a few times, Drew Houston, and I'm like, he created Dropbox. He's just smart guy, works his ass off. If he can do it, other people can do it, right? And there are 4 batches now a year in Y Combinator, so you have 4 chances. Should you apply in school? The answer is yes, because you might have some insight that perks Y Combinator's interest. And then you have an opportunity to quit school. So it's as crazy as it sounds, it's like you know, if you're given that opportunity, it's a chance. It's a like a path in life. And maybe you go back to school if you like your startup fails, you know, that's always another opportunity, you know.